Welcome to my show. And today we are going to discuss a topics which is affecting the entire world. Everybody is looking towards it, the COP30 at Belém, Brazil. And I have the person with me right now who is going to lead all those things. Welcome, Ambassador Andre Correa de Lago, President of COP30. It's such a pleasure and privilege to have you in this program. And we are looking forward to have your opinion on a host of issues. I think it's such a pleasure. I know that you are a very short trip in India and making time for us. I think it's such a wonderful gesture from your part.
No.
Ambassador, I hope you've been settling down and I can start shooting my questions to you.
Absolutely. I'm delighted to talk to you. As you know, I absolutely love your country. I was lucky to be ambassador to India for almost 5 years. And the best memories of my trips to Calcutta. So it's a wonderful occasion.
Absolutely, such a privilege to having you. And I also remember that you were the chief negotiator for Brazil in Rio. So it's also coming to a full cycle. So that's such a wonderful way forward. Ambassador, if I can start from this point, when this COP29 ended at Baku, if I may say so a bit dismally, with the amount of finance being approved was much less than the expectation of the developing economies like India, Brazil, and also the other economics down the line. Everybody started talking about the next COP in a emerging economy like Brazil will be a turnaround COP. It was started just after the Baku. So I think about 2 months or some days away from the COP30, how hopeful you are for Belém to be a turnaround COP?
Well, lots of things happened since Baku, and I think that since you have this huge experience with many COPs, you know that COPs have to be analyzed in different layers, no? Because you cannot in a unified and easy way define if a COP was successful or not. There are many layers, and sometimes civil society is satisfied with something, but countries are frustrated. Sometimes business is happy, and civil society is not. So COPs are supposed to please many people and many actors. So when we had the Baku COP, it was supposed to be the finance COP. And as you said, the number did not satisfy most people. So at the same time that you had the decision on the 300 billion, you also had the decision that the president of COP29, together with the president of COP30, would present a roadmap from Baku to Belém to try to show how can we increase the 300 billion to 1.3 trillion. So this is something that Mr. Babayev and I are preparing. And obviously, it's not an easy task, as you can imagine. But we have to be realistic. But most of all, we have to think of the urgency. If science tells us that we have few years to do what would really make a difference, we have to try to make it as quickly as possible, as intensively as possible. So we are preparing this roadmap with that in mind.
Absolutely great. Any thought about kind of relooking into that 300 billion what you just mentioned during the Belém conference, or it's a more long-term effect?
No, there is no mandate to discuss the results of the roadmap we're going to present. So the roadmap is going to be presented. and the delegations will read, but there is no plan and there is no item in the agenda to debate the issue. But naturally, um, this is going to raise many discussions, but not
Right.
specifically formally in Belém. So that's why the you know as you have seen in so many COPs, there are some subjects that seem like an obvious subject to debate, but if it's not in the agenda approved by consensus, then formally it cannot be discussed. So we are a bit in this situation that two of the most important sources of information for COP30, which is that 1.3 trillion roadmap, and also the NDC's synthesis report, neither of them are supposed to be discussed at the COP.
Okay. Okay. So I understand that very critical, as you mentioned about Baku to Belém, and I just hope that kind of it will be taken forward to the advantage or the way the world wants to see it. The repeated COPs and their relative failures, if I may say so, beyond Paris and all those things happening around the world, wars and all those things, uh, raising questions about the multilateralism. People are started questioning about the COP efficacy. I still remember Salim al-Haq, unfortunately, whom we lost last year, and it's a person who has been from very beginning, used to tell me that, Janto, despite I being part of every COP, I myself have been kind of have questions about the efficacy of COP, the multilateralism procedure.
Mm.
At the same time, he said this may be the only procedure. So what's your quick take on that? Multilateralism being questioned vis-a-vis the COP result.
Yeah, I would share the same feeling as him, but the fact is that we don't have a credible alternative.
Right.
So, what we are doing at COP30 is that since I think I'm the first president of a COP that used to be a negotiator. So
Absolutely.
I
That's a
have
huge advantage.
yeah, I think it's a very special circumstance that
Right.
I'm at the same time I'm supposed to understand what happens at COPs because I'm supposed to have learned something, but at the same time I also have obviously mixed feelings by the experience. No, so that's why somehow we decided that talking to President Lula told me very clearly, he said, you know, most people don't understand what happens once those documents are approved. So it ends up being an exercise of approval of documents every year, but people don't know what happens with these documents. So we decided that at this COP, we should have a real communication, a real structure that people could understand how we can use what has already been approved. And what happened in the last 10 years since Paris is that most of the most important things that had to be negotiated have already been negotiated. So we thought, well, we already have a mandate for so many things. Why don't
Right.
we structure a very clear action agenda and show the world that we can do a lot with what has already been negotiated instead
Right.
of only thinking about what is missing? What do we need to negotiate? So there is this obsession about the negotiation that I think has somehow distanced the general public, the business, the subnational governments from the essence of the COP. The essence of the COPs is to approve decisions, but also to implement. And we also understood quite clearly that the Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC were designed for negotiations, but they were
Mhm.
not designed for implementation. So
Absolutely.
we decided to put very clearly the difference between the negotiation and the action agenda. And we structured the action agenda in a very transparent way uh, to stimulate implementation of what was approved in the global stocktake. Since we did a global stocktake, since we have a mandate, why don't we do what we already approved? Because you remember that many of the action agendas were used as a test for things that we wanted to put later into the negotiation. We somehow inverted the logic. No, let's not use the action agenda as a way to get some issues into the negotiation. Let's do the opposite. Let's use the action agenda to implement what has already been approved. And people are reacting very positively to that.
I think that's great, and I think that is a structure which can actually take forward this multilateralism that we have been rooting for. I think thank you for explaining it, Ambassador. I think such a wonderful way to start that. Very quickly, before I go to the key issues, what is supposed to come out, the Donald Trump factor, that U.S. president, as we all know, is not quite a friend of climate negotiation and climate issues to be general. And there's a Trump factor all around. And the words are also around. How do you see the Trump factor this time affecting the negotiation? Number one. And also, related question is, last time when Donald Trump wanted to pull out of the UNFCCC, we saw that individual states of US putting up exhibition stalls saying, we are still in, US is still in. Are we going to see the similar kind of thing in Belém?
I believe we will, because when we think that the American government withdrew from the Paris Accord, that doesn't mean that America left the Paris Accord, because so many governors, so many businesses, so many universities, so many technology businesses are still totally connected to the logic of the Paris Accord in America. So some American analysts told me that at least 60 or 70% of the American GDP is still committed to Paris. And this is a larger economy than China. So we may be frustrated that the whole of America is not committed, but a significant part of America is committed. But on the other side, what we are seeing is that Mr. Trump is actively going against some kinds of renewables and other policies that are much more strong than in his first time as president. So this is obviously a concern, but somehow this effort to undermine some renewables and some policies that are pro-climate maybe are also an indication that these things are working, because these things have become, for instance, so much cheaper. Solar energy now is the cheapest form of energy in all the countries in the world.
Absolutely.
So how can you fight that? No? Wind energy is extremely efficient in many countries. We have to see that this new phase of this new Trump administration is dealing with these issues at the moment that fighting climate change has become a positive business attitude. It's good for business. It's good for jobs. So it will be interesting to see how it evolves. But it's very clear that he wants to favor a more traditional and obviously not positive for the climate way of of uh, of trying to bring a kind of growth in the United States, like the old economy. No, and the contrast is very impressive if you think of China, which has very much invested into this new economy. So there is like an interesting clash of titans, on one choosing one direction and the other clearly choosing another one.
Okay, and thank you for kind of elaborating it so wonderfully, and I think a similar situation is emerging in Belém as well, where, as you just said, that part of America, about 60%, want the climate action may be represented in some form or other. So we are looking forward to that situation in Belém. Now, having said that, the key agenda, as you said, the last COP was a finance COP. This COP is built to be an NDC COP. The NDCs were supposed to be submitted by, I understand, in February. The time got extended. So there are question marks about whether all NDCs will be submitted or not. And if they're even submitted, whether that will address that emission gap that the scientists are talking about to keep the world within the 2 degrees centigrade at most, preferably 1.5. Your take on that on the NDC?
Yeah, I believe that the NDCs are going to be presented on time for the synthesis report that will be published at the end of October. So I think we will have the numbers. But unfortunately, there are strong indications that the numbers will not take us closer to 1.5 as we would like to. But I'm a Brazilian, so I'm permanently an optimist. So I have to tell you that when we were negotiating Paris, you remember, the world was on track to 4 degrees or more.
Right.
With 10 years of Paris, we are on track to 2.7 or something like that. So we're still very far from 1.5, but it's infinitely better than having 4 as the what we should expect. So I hope the number will indicate that we are somewhere close to 2, I hope. The fact is that we are certainly going to have we are going to need a very important debate on how we can move forward. And this is a very delicate discussion because, as you know, the countries don't want to face the situation that being pointed as the countries that are not lowering enough their emissions or have modest NDCs. Nobody wants that. So that's why the synthesis report is going to show a general number of all the countries together, or most of the countries together. But I believe that we're going to need a very important debate next year about what do we do if the gap is really significant, and I think that this is going to be this is a very, very complex debate.
Okay, I think just the debate will go towards the forward direction. We all hope for that. Now, having said NDC, there are other agendas on your hand, and very critical agendas. We have seen how the loss and damage finance have come up in the last 2 COPs. We have seen the other agendas. So according to you, there's also issue of adaptation finance, which is quite low. So what are the other issues you feel can become critical in COP 30 during Belém?
Yeah, I think that among what we're going to negotiate, so in the negotiation itself, I think that adaptation is absolutely central because we have the global goal on adaptation and we're going to try to reach 100 priorities. And then we have just transition. I think this is extremely important because the transition has to make economic sense and has to make social sense. If we don't convince the general public that this agenda is a pro-growth, pro-job, and pro-development agenda, we are going to face more and more difficulties, even more in democracies. No? So, and the other issue is how we're going to debate some progress in the GST. I think the global stock take indicated so many priorities, and the countries are very much divided if we should concentrate on one aspect or another aspect of the GST. So I think that these are the three more delicate negotiations. But I think that we really have to look at the action agenda as something that can deliver a lot. Why can it deliver a lot? Because once you have the negotiation, as I said, and once you have a mandate to do things, countries under the Paris Agreement have voluntary, they have everything is voluntary. So countries can decide to go in one direction or another direction, but countries can act and do lots of things. And I think that the action agenda will probably indicate that we can make lots of progress in different areas. We have selected 6 axes of priorities. Basically, it's one is energy, transportation, and industry. The other is forestry, that we think is very important, and obviously because the conference is going to be in the Amazon, and not so much in the dimension of deforestation, but mostly because restoration of forests is an amazingly effective way of capturing CO2 that is already in the atmosphere. Then we're going to have a debate on cities. We're going to have another axis on agriculture, then another one on people, and finally a 6th axis that is cross-cutting, mostly about finance and technology, which are central issues for debating anything under the convention. So under these 6 axes, we have chosen 30 priorities, and we are organizing a series of debates about these priorities. And we are going to have a section of the COP, and this is the first time that it happens. We're going to have permanently debates on all of these aspects of the 6 axes in 6 different rooms during the entire COP. So we're going to have more than 320 events, bringing the main experts on the 30 most important issues that the GST, that were approved in the GST. So it's not about discussing negotiation. It's about discussing implementation. And we also analyzed the more than 400 initiatives of previous action agendas. And we have contacted these initiatives, and circa 300 are still active. So we're also bringing these actors to discuss how it has evolved, how solutions really happened. So I believe that will be the first COP that we can really say is the COP of implementation. But we also want this to be a COP of adaptation. And we also want this to be a COP of the turnaround, as you said, in the sense that a COP that explained to people why we are meeting every year and what are the results of this meeting.
I think that's extremely important. Before I come into the last couple of questions, a quick lead to this. There are discussions about the anti-fossil fuel treaty in some quarters. Any quick thought on that? Any discussion
on what?
Anti-fossil fuel treaty. They're saying that if there is not an anti-fossil fuel treaty, the Paris Agreement cannot be implemented. So your thought very quickly on that.
In the GST, we had this very important agreement of transitioning away from fossil fuels. But we also agreed that it has to be according to each country's circumstance, because India or South Africa have a huge issue with coal, no? Because it is the traditional source of energy. Brazil has a completely different circumstance because we don't have coal, so we have very renewable energy. But on the other side, we discovered lots of oil and lots of gas. So we are on the way to become the fifth largest exporter of oil. So each country has a different relationship with oil, gas, and coal. And each country has to find its pathway towards transitioning away from fossil fuels, because we all agreed to transition away from fossil fuels. So I think that some countries are very much concentrated on the legal dimension of it. So they want to have a decision about that. They want to have stronger decisions about that. Other countries believe that we have to stimulate movement through individual action of each country according to their precedent. We're going to have a very special circumstance at the COP, is that it's the first COP since the decision of the International Court of Justice. So
Right.
we're going to have a very important debate. Our Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of Brazil, is going to organize a debate with many judges of the world, and we're going to have 2 days dedicated to justice, because we have to realize that we cannot ignore that very strong decision of the ICJ. At the same time, for Latin America, a few days before the ICJ, there was a very strong decision of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, that also linked climate change to human rights in a very strong way. And it has a direct impact on legislation of Latin American countries. So the legal dimension, I think, has switched from the negotiation to a judicial dimension that may bring, and many people fear, very intense litigation, for instance. So this is a new dimension, and it's quite interesting, because it's a bit like if those who were fighting for getting action against climate change under the convention have switched a strategy from the convention to the courts. So this is a very important debate we're going to have also.
My last question about Brazil and India. As you said, that you have been Indian High Commissioner for many years, almost 5 years, and also India and Brazil share a very good relationship. You took the G20 responsibility from us, and you are part of the basic countries, both India and Brazil. How you see India's role in the COP30, and are we expecting our Prime Minister to go there in the leaders' conclave? And what's the feedback about the leaders' conclave as well?
Well, we'd love to have Prime Minister Modi at the COP, and we had the privilege of having him at the BRICS summit, and then on a state visit to Brazil last month. So we really appreciated that enormously, and I was there, and I could see the wonderful personal understanding that President Lula and Prime Minister Modi could show on that occasion. So India is more and more a very important partner for Brazil. And now, ironically, we are the two countries that are united by the 50% tariffs of the United States. We are the two only countries where that the U.S. imposed 50%
Right.
tariff. So we are in a year where everything unites Brazil and India.
Absolutely. And we look forward to that. Finally, Ambassador, every year we cover COPs and we don't schedule our return flight because the COP gets extended by 30 hours, 1 day, 2 day, and likewise. What do you expect as a COP chair this time that that when should we schedule our return flight? Should we stay back for another couple of days? What's your
Look,
take on that?
we as a diplomat and with all my wonderful team, we are going to try to make this the most transparent COP. So I don't like surprises. I don't like little decisions from here and there and something in hiding. I am super transparent, and I hope that through transparency we can have a rhythm for the COP that will allow us to finish with very good results and on time. But I think maybe we are being a bit too ambitious, and we don't want to overstate our intentions. But I believe that we obviously would love to be able to do that. But this is as president of the COP, I depend on the countries,
Right.
and so as usual, I will try to be as fair as possible. But you can count on me to try to be extremely ambitious.
And you expect the leaders conclave at the beginning to play a key role to make it more successful?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the international geopolitical context is very much challenging for multilateralism. So the presence of the leaders is extremely important because it's a reaction, a confirmation that multilateralism is central.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's such wonderful to speak to you. And I won't be taking more
Thank you
time of you.
very
I
much.
know that you are at the everybody's looking towards you, and I just hope that you stay physically, mentally at the top of your game because you have been a former negotiator. You know how the whole thing pans out, and we are all looking forward to you to make it really a turnaround COP. Brazil is a wonderful country, and we all feel that a wonderful result for climate change will come out of it. And we all look forward to see you at Belém. And thank you for your time. It's such wonderful to speak to you.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to see you in Belém, and I hope to go back to Kolkata as soon as possible.